And you mentioned 2 paragraphs sums it up, right, on something so important as the sanctity of life. We need to get that into the tax system, too, a 2-paragraph deal while you're there, Joe.
Yeah, abolish the IRS. It's 2 words. And, frankly, the IRS has been, like I said, we mentioned that before, its use as an agency, as really for political persecution. I think the fair tax is the best way to go, but I'm for any system of simplification of the tax system. Of course, the fair tax would immediately bring in trillions of dollars of money that's offshore, and it has a rebate system so that families with children are protected. And the ultimate end of this is, of course, the average American family is going to pay far less in taxes. Goods will be cheaper. All taxes gone except for the fair tax. That's something that could create accountability. It's going to require a lot of effort. We'll have to get political alliances, get people to get the thing passed. It's a constitutional amendment, but I think it's a worthy objective that we all ought to fight for.
All right, we're rolling toward Tuesday, a big election in Alaska. And again, for people who want to learn more and jump on board here for Joe Miller, it is joeforliberty.com. That's joeforliberty.com. Joe Miller, he's a guy who says Sarah Palin is the Alaskan that inspires him the most. And I know, Joe Miller, you're inspiring a lot of Alaskans and a lot of Americans across this country right now. We wish you the best, and we hope to talk to you after you're the nominee and heading toward the general.
Well, thank you, sir. I enjoyed doing it, and God bless you and your listeners.
Joe Miller for U.S. Senate. Again, go to joeforliberty.com. That's joeforliberty.com. In her endorsement of Miller, Sarah Palin says, quote, "Let's send in the reinforcements to restore liberty, to defend our Constitution, to build American exceptionalism. We must send fighters to the U.S. Senate who will stop Barack Obama's fundamental transformation of the nation we love. The status quo has got to go, and in Alaska, the man who understands this key to our state and country's future also has the guts, wisdom, experience, and optimism to fight for what is right and win. We said we'd send the good guys. In Washington, their reinforcements. So Alaska, here we go. Vote for Joe Miller on Tuesday and shake off the liberal stranglehold so we can get on the right track," unquote. To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page, follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA, and visit sarahpalinchannel.com.
It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson and Kevin Scholla.
Hi, Susan. Welcome back.
Hey, Kevin. Nice to be here.
So a busy week, of course. Sarah Palin endorsing Joe Miller. That's the big news, but lots going on in the country as well. And again, a lot of people, a lot of times even in their own party, still not getting along, and it's to the detriment of all of us.
I think that you're seeing a struggle in the Democrat Party as well. They may not be quite as vocal or as public about it, but certainly within the Republican Party, we're having our struggles here in Virginia. Just yesterday, or this last week, the state central has really taken a majority of people who really represent grassroots. They're closest to the people. And so your mainstream, quote-unquote, establishment Republicans have lost their control. Really, the consultant class has lost its control. And I guess if you look nationwide, there was an article in the Federalist that talked about, you see a lot of stories about anti-establishment Republicans are attacking their mainstream opponents, but very rarely do we see news articles where they will write about the fact that these people who hold office mainstream, how really badly they attack anyone who would, dare to run for office. And so I think it's just it's a natural friction that you're seeing nationwide, but what you're really seeing is a growing number of just grassroots people that are helping more and more of those people win office, and there's a struggle for power.
You're right, and the attacks from those in office or those in the mainstream, as you put it, they're really dirty. I mean, those are the ones that are really pulling out all the stops, and the dirtiest of all in Mississippi with the situation with McDaniel.
Look, as you look at this, and this is what the Federalist talked about, what you really need to look at is you have mutual interest among the Democrat Party and among more moderate Republicans, for this progressive type of thinking, which, quite honestly, that is what the Republican Party has been doing. And I'm talking about action. I'm not talking about words. They're progressive. They want a more centralized federal power. because they want more power and control themselves. And so they weave the story that those who come into office who campaigned on a limited government, they're weaving a story like they do on Ted Cruz. He wants to blow up bridges, or he's, disastrous policies because, we want to just, even if it's just slow the growth of the budget, that leads to disaster. So I think this is something that is not going away, and I think that you are seeing the population in general. They are looking at these elected officials, whether they're Democrat or Republican, and saying, nothing's changing. It doesn't really matter what your words are. You're not doing what you've indicated that you say you believe in. So I think we're just going to continue to see this struggle.
Right. If you're a conservative, you hate grandma, you hate kids, you hate dogs, right? The whole 9 yards.
Right.
You mentioned the progressive agenda. I think the difference, though, is the Democrats believe in it lock, stock, and barrel, whereas I think a lot of the Republicans, you said the moderate ones who go this route, they believe in part of it, but they love to watch polls. They love to do what their handlers, what the Karl Roves of the world tell them to do. Instead of, you mentioned Ted Cruz, a great example, or Sarah Palin, or Joe Miller, or Mike Lee, who come out and say, here's where I stand. I'll explain to you why. I'll tell you why it's the way to go. If you like it, great. If you don't, I'll work for you too if I'm elected. I mean, that's a huge difference.
What a lot of people don't realize, and I didn't truly realize until I held office, Republicans are notorious for campaigning on limited government, cutting taxes, but once you get in there and once you start doing that, you can watch them squeal because they want their programs. And so when you said that the Democrats believe the progressive agenda and they act on it, well, what I see with many of our elected Republican officials through their action is they also love the bigger budgets and the bigger bureaucracy because it increases their power and control, and it makes sure or helps them have an advantage to hold on to that power. So there are more and more people now that are willing to step up and run for office, like Dave Bratt in Virginia, who was able to defeat Eric Cantor because of, I believe, this idea that our elected officials are not doing what they say that they will do.
Well, certainly not the party of Lincoln and Reagan, that's for sure.
That's right, and so it's kind of interesting to watch these elected Republicans who have a lot of power, a lot of influence, and a big platform to whine about some of the grassroots that are actually working to hold them accountable for their actions.
Well, they can whine. Hopefully the Joni Ernsts and the Joe Millers of the world will make them squeal when they're elected. We appreciate it, Susan. Go blow up some bridges.
Well, hopefully I won't do that, but thank you, Kevin.
Susan Stimson in Virginia. More Commonwealth Common Sense next week. Now our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. This week, all eyes have been focused on the events unfolding in Ferguson, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis. The death of a young man by a police officer is a tragedy, and it is certainly understandable that members of his community march and protest because of the circumstances. Some who protest genuinely want to improve the relationship between law enforcement and their community. Some want to express their belief that young African Americans are mistreated by law enforcement simply because of the color of their skin. These are legitimate concerns that need to be addressed. There also has been looting and stealing in businesses in Ferguson. Remarkably, some argue that this looting is a legitimate protest. That's ridiculous. Some national African American leaders haven't uttered one word condemning this looting. This is so terribly wrong, and all it does is detract from any discussion about race relations and disrespects Michael Brown's family. These people who are looting should be arrested and put in jail. Fortunately, there are people like Captain Ron Johnson of our Missouri State Highway Patrol who were placed in charge of law enforcement in Ferguson. He deserves our praise. He has effectively handled the situation by treating people with genuine respect and listening to citizens' concerns. That's why he commands respect. He made it clear that looting is unacceptable and unlawful behavior. Captain Ron Johnson is the kind of man who can turn things around in Ferguson, Missouri. We need others like him carrying the same message. This is Sarah Steelman for Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Commonwealth Common Sense and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. So just head to mamagrizzlyradio.com, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. Visit mamagrizzlyradio.com for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, like Mama Grizzly Radio on Facebook, and follow along on Twitter at Mama Grizz Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Susan B. Stimson, and at Sarah_Steelman. I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Head to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman, Susan Stimson, and everyone here at Mama Grizzly Radio. Thanks to Joe Miller, and thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.